is Brad Muniz. I'd like to welcome you to Sobel Insights. Sobel Insights is a weekly series where we provide some brief information on various topics. Our goal is to keep these sessions 15 minutes. At this time, we do not offer CPE. If you have any topics or presenters that you can find interesting, you'd like us to look into, please reach out to me. Our topic today is introductions to 990s, and our presenter is Michele Mastrofilippo. She's a senior in the nonprofit group at Sobel & Company. So, Michele, I've been doing nonprofit work for, been involved with nonprofits for a long time, and I've seen the 990s around. I've read them to some extent, but can you just give us some insight? What is a 990?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. So a 990 is an information return that is filed by nonprofit organizations with the IRS. It is called an information return, not a tax return, because nonprofits typically don't have to pay any income tax. So some of the information that it will provide is information on their financial position, policies and procedures that they have in place, their governance and board members, and their major activities and programs. So the way a 990 is set up is to give all of this information in the first 12 pages, which I personally like to call the core pages. And then it can get much larger and extend to various supplemental schedules. The schedules go from A to R, so there are a lot. And if we got into all of that, we could definitely be here for a very long time.
Oh, cool. So we're going more than 15 minutes, you said?
Definitely not.
Okay. So
I don't want to bore you.
So a couple of things. I was doing a peer review and I got into a debate with the practitioner about the 990 and the fact if it was a tax return or not a tax return. So I appreciate a professional in the 990 area like yourself, because I was saying it's a tax return. In my mind, it's an IRS form, it's a tax return, but it's an informational return. Not only did I know that the core, a lot of the information is in the first 12 pages. The 990s I looked at, majority of them are much longer than 12 pages. So you're really disappointing me. So what do you think? Like, why is it important? What's the importance of them?
So the 990s are usually the only public financial data available about an organization. So it's going to attract two main users, which is the public and then also the government. One sector of the public that's going to use it a lot is potential donors. They can use them to search for the best nonprofit if they are looking for someone new to support. And through this, they're looking for transparency and sustainability of the organization. You can portray a lot of information in those 12 pages. So some of the things they might look for is how the organization is generating their revenue, and then in turn, how they are spending this money. What is their mission? What are their large programs? How are those programs performing in the past year? And they can just evaluate the overall fiscal responsibility by looking into the policies that they do have in place. Another sector of the public that will use this is potential board members. They'll also look to get more information on the organization's finances, and they can also find the board list in those 12 pages. So by looking at who the other board members are, they can see potential need and how they may fit in. Because it is available to the public, you do want to make sure that it's accurate and that it presents well. It can be a highly scrutinized document for nonprofits. So then on the other hand, you have the government user. Their main purpose of the 990 is to verify whether the organization is remaining in compliance with all of the requirements needed to maintain their tax exempt status.
I didn't even think about it like that this is the source for the public information, and nonprofits are getting most of their funding from public sources, either public contributions, government agencies, which is public money. So that this is the source for, as you said, the public information. So you listed a couple areas I know anytime I go to look at 990s, I go to look at the board list. I don't know, I just like to see who's on the board. And I know Bridget, when I talk with her, she's always looking at a different area. What do you think are the if you had a list of significant areas of 990s, you said a couple, but what would you say the significant areas are?
The board list would definitely be one of them, because here is where reporting of compensation takes place. Nonprofits are required to report the compensation of their officers, their key employees, and their highly compensated employees. The 990 actually addresses this in multiple different areas. There's even its own schedule for it, Schedule J. But in the core pages, it does specifically ask whether or not the compensation was determined by independent parties and if it is comparable to other organizations of either similar size or mission. There's also a place to put an actual write-up of how officer compensation determination takes place. So it gets pretty specific. And by reporting this, the IRS isn't really looking to expose your employees' salaries and show everybody what you're paying. The main purpose is just to make sure compensation is reasonable and there's no excess benefit transactions taking place. Just by nature of the organization, nonprofits do have a responsibility to not misuse donor funds. The funds should be primarily to carry out their programs and their mission and help the public. So by disclosing their compensation and showing that it is reasonable, they're just showing that they are being financially responsible.
So I know from sitting on a board, and I remember a few years back and working with Bridget and Ron were here, that there's a requirement for the board to review the 990. The problem is that I honestly feel most board members don't understand a 990. You know, it's hard enough for an accountant to review it and understand a 990. I feel bad for them. And I know that you can have an adjunct for the board, i.e. a finance committee or something, review it on behalf of the board, but the board has to take responsibility. So as a board member, what should they focus on, would you say, when reviewing a 990? Because it's only what, like 100 pages or something?
It can be.
I believe it.
Yeah, so you're right. The financial information can be a bit overwhelming just because there is a ton of it. And all the different schedules will present it in different ways. So it can definitely be a lot to look at. Other areas that they can focus on are the mission and program descriptions. These are really going to tell the story of your organization and what you've accomplished, what you hope to accomplish. So in this way, the 990 can actually be used as more of a marketing tool. I've also seen organizations who put very specific details in their program descriptions. They might include the number of people helped, the number of communities or counties that they've reached. Some even go a step further to show the actual amount of money. Let's say if they're giving out scholarships, they'll put the dollar amount of scholarships they've provided in the past year. So with this detailed information, you also want to make sure you are updating every year. So you can give the most accurate picture of the work they're actually doing and what you've accomplished.
You know, I've looked at a lot of 990s. I look at financial information. I look at the board. I look at the compensation. I never realized that the mission and the purpose of the organization is listed in there. And I can imagine that you've got to make sure that it conforms to what's on their website. And now when this 990 was created, there were no websites, so nobody had this conflict. There was mailing information, but now it's very easy because the Sallys of the world can go change the website and modify it to make it sound better. And meanwhile, we're copying the mission from last year, and now there could be some conflict. That's interesting. Okay, well now you give me an area I have to focus on when I'm reviewing a 990. Thanks.
I could give you another one too. Another good area to look at is the policy and procedure explanations. So we already touched a little bit on the officer compensation determination policy, but there's also various other ones listed. These will help to show your potential donors or board members or just anybody in the public looking at it that you are responsible and you do have these things in place to help your organization run smoothly. The funny thing about these questions is if you answer no and say that you don't have one of these policies, nothing happens. It doesn't mean you're doing anything wrong. You're not going to get into any trouble. I think just by being a board member and reviewing these, if you see a box checked no, it might put up a red flag in your head, and it might be something that you decide to start a conversation about and try to implement going forward.
Okay, look for the no's. All right, the no's. So I anticipate what you're going to say, but I want to hopefully be surprised, so it's like a present. But I think I know the present I'm going to get. These are public documents, as you said. This is public information. Where's the best place to get them?
Guidestar.org.
I knew it. I knew that's what I was getting for my birthday.
Sorry, that's all I got for you.
I know that they were trying to create another one, but a GuideStar, we're not here promoting GuideStar or anything like that, but GuideStar is a great site to try and find information about the organizations, right?
Yeah, you do have to sign up for it, but the access is free. There's no payments involved. And the IRS does upload these for all of the organizations as they're processed. That's how they actually get there. So if it exists, it's up there. The organization can also upload it themselves, but then there will just be two.
But it takes a while for them to get up there, though, sometimes I notice, right?
Yeah.
And this isn't like Charity Navigator, that's different, right?
Yeah, that's different. This is just a access to the 990, and it also will show you a brief summary. I think it shows you their mission, their
Right.
principal officer, their location,
Right.
general things like that.
Okay, no, I've seen it. It's a really good source. Anytime I hear about a nonprofit, I go look there. When I've been considering boards, I go look there, download the 990s. Okay, hoping to get another one, unfortunately. So, I hear a lot of things about nonprofits and them performing certain functions that are outside the standard mission of the organization. And, rental for when it's not their business, or newsletters and getting advertising at newsletters. It's obviously outside the mission of the organization. And accordingly, I heard that there's something that's called Youbit. Now, is Youbit part of the 990? I mean, Youbit, it sounds like you're trying to sound cool with a good acronym.
So it's kind of part of it. It will also lead you into another supplemental schedule. It's actually a supplemental return. It's called the 990T. So if you do have Youbit, which stands for Unrelated Business Income Tax, you'll have to file the 990 as well as the 990T.
Now, so going back to the first question, so the 990T, is that considered a tax return or informational return? I don't know is okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think my guess would be a 990T is a tax return.
See, because if I'm on Jeopardy, I want to know that.
We're going to have to look it up after this.
But so 990T is pretty much a return for filing, is that to pay the tax, the Youbit, the unrelated business income tax. Now, Youbit in and of itself, we could spend another hour just going on what comprises Youbit. And I mean, I listed a couple just because I was part of a lake association. I was part of another association that was getting rent, and all of a sudden the auditors started saying, hey, if you're getting this type of revenue, you may have to pay tax on it. Because it's not fundraising type of revenue, and it's not programmatic type of revenue. So Youbit could come into there.
Yeah.
Okay, well, what was that?
I was just going to point out the three main criteria that makes the revenue stream subject to income tax. So it has to be income from a trade or business. It has to be regularly carried on. So if you just have a one-off, it may not be subject to tax. And the third thing is it has to be substantially unrelated to the organization's mission.
Well, that gets back to the newsletter thing. I was president of a lake association, and we had a dopey newsletter. It was recurring. it wasn't a trader business. We were not running a print shop and a newspaper, but it was a newsletter, and you get some local people to contribute, and that supports the production of the newsletter. And what was the last one you said? It was
Unrelated to the mission.
yeah, unrelated to the mission, but it became a big debate about it.
It gets pretty blurry in this area. It's always good to consult somebody if you're unsure.
Yeah. I won't say where we wound up with the decision because I don't want you judging me, or I don't want anybody of the viewers to say they did what. Either way, I'm not going to tell you. But okay, is there anything else you want to mention on 990s?
That's all I got for you today.
That's all you got. Great. Well, I want to thank you for presenting. Really provided me information, 30-something years of practicing, and I learned a whole lot from this. And I want to thank everybody for viewing this. If you have any ideas for topics or speakers, let me know. Michele, thank you very much.
Thank you.